Hello, hello. Let's see. We are going to be starting here in a few minutes, and right now we're just doing some technical stuff, and I've posted a question. Can you see a question that I've posted over to the right of your screen? Just curious. We're going to actually show you a video here in just a moment, but I am wanting to ask a couple of questions, and I'm trying to post it. Oh, good. It looks like you're coming in. All right, 2 o'clock 10 o'clock at night. Maria, welcome. Let's see. Fantastic. There we go. There we go. All right here in a couple minutes, we're going to start a video while everyone's getting checked in. It looks like people are coming in by the masses. And I did a couple of videos before the show with some examples of auriculotherapy. And the first video is a short one that I want to show in the beginning just to sort of warm us up. It involves me doing acupuncture first on a patient and then adding auriculotherapy within the treatment. So I will be starting that in a moment. We've got people from France and wow, this is really fun. Germany. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start a video, and after the video, we'll get started in the webinar. It looks like right now we've got quite a few of you logged in, and I think people are just continuing to log in. So let me get a video started, and I will let you enjoy that. All right, we are ready to get started. It looks like our room is quite full with attendees, and it has been really fun to see all the different places that you are chiming in from. Let's see, there's a question here. Can you show the location of the stimulus while using points? Let's see. Well, we'll get more into those questions in a moment. First, I wanted to introduce myself. I am Kimberly Thompson, and I am a licensed acupuncturist in Meridian, Idaho. I have my own clinic. I also work for Meridia Technology as an acupuncture research analyst. I work here 3 days a week, and I really get the best of both worlds. I get to treat patients, and get into the real heart of what I'm doing, and then I actually get paid to learn and research and do more so that I can help other acupuncturists. So it's pretty exciting to have this opportunity, especially here in remote Meridian, Idaho. So we are going to get started here. I know that your time is valuable, and we will get started on the presentation. So I already told you about me, and we already asked questions about where you're from. So the main question is, why use auriculotherapy? We get a lot of phone calls from people asking about auriculotherapy, and so I'm going to share some of my experience on the whys. But let's see. First of all, it works. I don't know if maybe many of you have seen a video that I've done about shoulder pain, and it was I sort of stumbled upon it in the practice process of using auriculotherapy, but with using the powerful tools that I have learned in auriculotherapy, I've become very well known in my community as the acupuncturist who can take care of chronic pain conditions. And so it wasn't something that I used much in the beginning, but I have learned time and time again that it works over and over and over. Let's see. Whether you are using auriculotherapy to treat as a root treatment or a branch treatment, either way, it has powerful effect. If you are a TCM practitioner or functional medicine doctor or a chiropractor and you want to treat the root cause, you can do that through auriculotherapy, but you can also treat the branch treatment. So if somebody has acute pain, you can quickly go right into that condition and make pain stop immediately. The other reason auriculotherapy is really important to use and great to use in your practice is because it's easy. So I am a TCM practitioner, and I have learned not to stand on my pedestal quite so much, because in the beginning, people would say, you know, claim auriculotherapy to the TCM world, and the TCMers really thought that it was all their medicine. And I have learned that it is not. In fact, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and it's a little bit controversial, but I believe this to be true. So you ready? Here's my controversial statement. Anyone can learn auriculotherapy. You don't have to be, even non-licensed practitioners can use auriculotherapy. Patients can use it. Massage therapists can use it. So there's one caveat. Not everyone can use needles, but auriculotherapy is not just about needles. You can treat the ear from many different modalities and become effective. And it's just a matter of using the right tools for your scope of practice. So as I said, in college, I learned about auriculotherapy, and I am a TCM practitioner, and I graduated from PCOM in San Diego. And if any of you are PCOM graduates, I would love it if you would tell me in the notes section. Send me a message. Tell me that you're a PCOM graduate. But when I was in school, there was our auriculotherapy class was very small. It was very condensed. It wasn't as long as the other classes, and the instructors did not have a lot of time, and they had one goal. I'm sure they had multiple goals, but based on the time and how much they were able to teach, really, I felt like the main goal was to teach me how to pass the exams. They taught me the key points that I needed. They taught me basic theory, diagnosis, basic treatment. We didn't get a lot of hands-on. And in fact, let's see. In fact, what I found during that time is that for us, it was right before third year end exams. And so at that point, we had been building and building in our knowledge, and we had very little time left before we were taking a huge exam, and we needed to pass exams. So really, the focus was very little. I learned what I had to learn, and I did what I needed to do, and then I needed to get out of that class so that I could study. And that's what a lot of my colleagues felt as well. And so by the time we finished that exam, finished the course, we were ready to step in as interns, but we didn't use a lot of the auriculotherapy, and that's the truth of the matter. Let's see, let me get back here. Sorry about that. So I'll tell you what they didn't teach me in school. So we already know they taught me how to pass exams, but what they didn't teach me in school was actually how to incorporate it immediately and get instantaneous results. What I learned in school, I definitely learned all of the TCM locations in the ear, and I learned a lot of key points, but not enough to really use auriculotherapy to its fullest. I could add a few points to supplement a TCM treatment, but not get everything that I could. So they taught the basics. They taught you, let's see, very traditional way of doing TCM, but they didn't give me any modern diagnostics, any modern treatment tools or reference materials. It was very, very basic. Here's an example of us in school. In fact, if you look, the picture to the big ear on the screen, that was my class project. And really it was a matter of trying to learn where those points were, because you needed to be able to fill in the blank for those zones on an exam. And so that was my big class project. It was laminated. And when I first started practice, that poster actually hung in my clinic when I first started college. And then the other picture, this was typical of what would happen in the clinic. If we decided, we had an instructor that told us, yes, TCM, or let's use some auriculotherapy, what points would you use? We'd all stand around a chart and we'd question and go, well, maybe we'll use this point and that point. And then we'd write those points down and we'd walk away and we would get to the treatment table. And then if you didn't remember exactly where they were, you just didn't get a lot of opportunity to use it effectively. So let's see. So I have another question for you. So when I was in college, I had a bunch of memorized points that I learned in taking the course, a few key ones that were the big points. And those I had memorized. And so I can't say that I didn't use auriculotherapy when I was treating as an intern, but I had some memorized points. And I'm curious if you had some memorized points, what yours were. I definitely would use Shenmen, and I knew the TCM point locations, especially kidney and liver, and I knew the heart. I knew the heart point and maybe sympathetic. Those were the main ones that I could grab at any point in time and use. And they are helpful and they're effective, but they didn't immediately stop a headache, and they didn't immediately stop shoulder pain. They weren't enough to get immediate results to where I could gain a strong foundation and love for auriculotherapy. So let's see. Shenmen, subcortex, NADA. NADA was a good one to know. I did take a special class in the NADA therapy. Let's see. So after I left PCOM and I graduated, I moved to Idaho, and eventually I started working at Meridia Technology. And I was very, very lucky. I got to spend the first, let's see, I spent 6 to 8 months doing nothing but study auricular research. Auriculo 1 had been released in October of 2009, and I came shortly thereafter. And Dr. Larson had this big vision of how he wanted to grow this auriculotherapy program. And he asked me to spend all of my time learning and telling him what needed to be in a program. He wanted to know, he wanted to know what I would suggest, being a new graduate, using it in my clinic, and what my experience was. So I took this challenge literally, and I gathered every research book that I could, and I started studying, and that is how auriculotherapy grew in my own private practice. By October of 2010, we added Auriculo 2, and then by May of 2012, we added Auriculo 3D, which was amazing. I have a question for you. I'm wondering how many of you have watched auriculotherapy grow up and have been part of our Auriculo 1, 2, and then 3D. So I've got a poll that I'm posting over to the right of your screen, and if you will answer those questions and tell me where you began your journey, or if you've used any of our programs, and it's okay if you haven't. Our software is, our Auriculo 3D software has grown over the years, and it's been fun to be a part of it. I remember when Dr. Larson and I made the decision after we were done with Auriculo 3D to make an Auriculo poster. And we spent hours upon hours upon hours fine-tuning and getting every point location exactly the way it was. And it was a fascinating process. And in that time, I really, I just started using Auriculo 3D or auriculotherapy in a way that I never had before, that I hadn't in college. And in this time, I'm going to share with you what I learned. And one, I learned that there was so much more than I could ever have remembered in my little 6 to 7 week course. I learned that there were many points that had different names, different locations, one author would tell you, it had one name for it, and a different author would have a different name for it. And studying all those books, I realized that there was just too much for my brain to handle. And so as I continued to study all the books, there were differing point locations, different theories, and a lot of it was based on the artwork. If one ear was drawn a certain way in one book, then the location is in one place, and if it was in another book, it was in another place. So it was really an eye-opening experience. So on our Auriculo poll, I see that a lot of you didn't join our team of auriculotherapy with our software until Auriculo 3D, that we've got 82%. Who were our first? We've got 5% that started with Auriculo 1. I'm just curious maybe who some of you are who started with us in the beginning. And it would be fun if you wanted to post how you felt the program has grown over the years and how it's benefited you. For me, it has been the difference of using auriculotherapy and not using auriculotherapy, because now I can use it to its fullest. So while those questions are being answered, let me tell you a true story. When I first started practice, and that was before I began with Meridia Technology, I actually really wanted to know more about about auriculotherapy, and I bought a book and I began studying the book. And so then when you're in treatment and you've got a patient and that aha moment goes on, and you know that you've got something that that can benefit the patient, but I couldn't remember what the points were or what the location was. And I'm going to go back to my slides and show you what I did and how professional I was at that stage of the game. So I would bring the book in and I would put it on my patient's belly, and I would look at the picture and I would tilt my head sideways and try to remember and try to find the locations and treat accordingly. So let's see, let me get into some of these questions. So I can't actually. It's different from the German. So Serge says, Kimberly, I own Acugraph and Auriculo 3D, always use it in every case, brilliant. And I was trying to figure out who okay, so Deb had Auriculo 2 and Auriculo 3D. So it looks like Deb has been with us for a while. Anyway, I'll get on. I'll move on. But that was using a book on a belly just wasn't very professional. And I knew that practitioners, if they were really going to use Auriculo 3D to the best of their ability, they needed a better resource. So after research, we pulled together protocols, put real points into protocols. And so that if somebody had shoulder pain, I could bring up shoulder pain just with a click, and I could bring up hemorrhoids, and everything became so much more powerful in my treatment process and so much more professional. Patients loved it, and I was getting great results. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the software, and I'm just going to spend about 5 minutes telling you about the software and how it works. For me, it was having everything in the software in one place was, I didn't know what I didn't know. And if I could have it in one place, it was easy. I could find anything, click just very quick in a moment, and begin treatment. And as I said, I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but if you would like to watch a video later on auriculo3d.com, there is a link for it. So in the software, there are 302 individual points in the program. There's information written on each point. You can edit, make your own details. It's searchable. Then you've got a comparison of points that have different names. Actually, when you click on this picture in Auriculo 3D, you can hover over a point and it will tell you what the name of that point is. And that's a helpful aspect of the software as well. The individual points, this is kind of a fun story. This point is not in your Auriculo 3D. This is a point called nervous liver. And I was showing Auriculo 3D at an acupuncture convention in Canada one time, and there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Maybe, and we were in Toronto, and he said, you really need to know about this point. It's not in your protocol. So I was able to create this point at that very moment. He showed me exactly where it was. He gave me, he told me it's only on the right ear, and it's fantastic for emotions such as anger. So I have that valuable information at my fingertips anytime I want it now, and I'll never forget it. It's not written in a book someplace. It is actually in my software. Let's see, the protocols are all in there. There are 180 protocols, and you can make your own. And again, like it's searchable. If you want to make a special protocol for a special patient because they have spasms and shoulder pain, you could combine protocols, add different points. And then the 3D portion is really exciting, especially when you're learning auriculotherapy and you're trying to look in and see where points are exactly. You can see a video demonstration of this on auriculo3d.com, but auriculotherapy is all about finding the right exact point. And if you can see where that point is, then your treatment becomes more effective, and knowing the exact location is awesome. Let's see. The frequency zones, if you are treating auricular points with a device that uses frequency, which I'll talk a little bit more about that later, you can overlay it over any treatment protocol that's there. And so I use frequencies and I use a tool, and this has been fantastic. And then I love this. So remember I told you earlier we'd stand around a chart looking at a chart. Well, it's typically just the right ear when you're looking at a chart, but oftentimes you have to treat on the left ear. So we now have the option of any protocol or any point that you're looking at, you can flip it from side to side. And that was a fun aspect. And then finally, it's a reference library. You can continue to add information every time you study more about auriculotherapy. You can put notes in your software and you can save it. And I wanted this to be fantastic for students while they were learning, and for practitioners in the learning process. If I would have had this while I was going through school, my experience in that 7-week course would have been so different. And again, it's searchable. All right, so we're going to move on and talk about some of the auriculotherapy basics. I see a lot of questions here, and we have a Q&A time at the end. So I'm going to ask, Dr. Larson is going to kind of watch these questions and make sure I get them answered at the end. So let me get through the basics and then we'll move on. So how do you diagnose? How do you diagnose for auriculotherapy? All depends on your training. If you are just a TCM practitioner, if you come up with a TCM pattern, you can treat TCM points, and you've done valuable work on your auriculotherapy right there. If you're a physical therapist and you're dealing with locations of the hip and the arm and the leg, you can find points that are that direction. If you're working with emotions, it doesn't matter what your range of training is, you can diagnose according to your individual education. And that's one of the great things about auriculotherapy. So, and then as far as choosing which points you're going to do, it, again, just like I was just saying, you can get to point A to point B in multiple directions, and you just have to use the information that is in your training. So I did not learn a lot about the master points when I was in college, but I think they're very effective and they're worth spending a moment to talk about. So master points are always electrically active. And if you treat the master points first before you treat any other points, or before you look for electrically active points, the other points will come alive, and you will find the points that you need quicker. Most protocols in our Auriculo 3D have master points in them to help make the points better. I use Shen Men and Sympathetic and Point Zero quite often, and oftentimes I will just add those 3 points to any auriculo or any body. If I'm doing body acupuncture, I will add those 3 points in, and that makes all of the acupuncture points that I'm treating work better as well. So those are nice to know. Let's talk about treatment. So if you're treating pain-related conditions, the thing that you need to remember is if the pain is on the left side of the body, let's say you're treating left shoulder pain, you will treat the left ear. If the pain is on the right side of the body, obviously the right ear. Something that they didn't teach me in school that is really, really helpful to know is if you are treating, let's just say you're choosing to treat the neck and arm on the front of the body, if you will find the point on the back of the body that, or back of the ear that mirrors that point on the front of the ear, then you will get greater results. And that is because the points on the back of the ear have to do with the muscles of that region, and the points on the front of the ear have to do with tendons, bones, and ligaments. Knowing that in itself, if you add that to what you already know on auriculotherapy, you will get better results. And then the other thing that is so important is to add ear seeds after treatment. And I'll talk more about that in a video that I'm going to show later. But that is how you get the most powerful treatment for pain-related conditions. If you chose one slide that you were going to learn the most from this seminar, this one in itself would be the best for you. If you're treating internal conditions, you treat both ears. Choose the points based on the organs or the function, and then add ear seeds afterwards. If I'm treating hemorrhoids, I will treat both ears. If I'm treating digestion issues, I'll treat both ears. If I'm treating emotional issues, I will treat both ears. All right, so let's talk about locating an acupuncture point. If you don't have an electrical device, you can use an ear probe, and that is what I was taught in school. You would take a probe, and first of all, you'd open it, look at a chart or look at a book, decide what points you wanted to use. You would use a probe, you'd probe around for tender spots, and then you would treat. And another way to choose a point location was to look for areas of color or abnormalities. So what I've learned since college is that if you use, well, one, I don't go to books anymore. I go to my computerized database. And then two, if you will use an electrical point detector, there are many different types on the market. My favorite is the Stimplus Pro because it's simple and easy to use, but you will use an electrical point detector and you will find the electrically active point. It is the same as probing around for the tender point, but sorry, here we go. It's the same as probing around for the tender point, but you're using a point detector to find that electrically active point. And then it's not a matter of how much pressure you created to find that tender point. You're actually really finding the electrically active point, and it is the right point to treat. There are a lot of different types of treatment tools that you can use in auriculotherapy. You know, I like to use needles. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and needles are my thing, but I have to be honest, I use an electrical device more so than I use needles. I use seeds a lot. You can use a probe or the ones across the bottom, a probe or a laser or a Stimplus, they will all work. If you're going to use a laser for treatment, I suggest that you find the electrically active point first, or the tender point at least, and then use the laser to narrow in. As far as the semi-permanent needles, I don't like them. They cause a lot of infection. They're very painful to take out. They are just not very popular with patients, and I don't even know very many practitioners who like them. So that's what I have to say about semi-permanent. If you are a beginner with auriculotherapy and you don't have the ability to use needles, a probe, a laser, or a Stimplus are fantastic options, and they are very effective. I use these for families, for home treatment. Massage therapists will use the probe and sometimes the Stimplus Pro, depending on their region and what their scope of practice is. Physical therapists will use these tools. Families, I will give families certain tools that they can use from home. So right now we're going to show a video. In this video, I'm going to show you a patient of mine, and Stimplus Pro was my mode of treatment, and I'm going to walk you through a typical treatment for me. And after that, I'll be coming back to do a Q&A session, to tie things up and do a Q&A session. So let me get this video started, and then I'll have a moment to scroll through your questions and come back. Okay, so let's see. Let me... Give me 1 second. All right, we are back. Let's see. Can you hear me? I'm assuming that my voice is that I'm here. The take-home message at this point really is that you can use auriculotherapy as a treatment all by itself, and it is very effective. I love to use auriculotherapy to seal the deal for any other type of therapy that I'm doing. So if you are a chiropractor and you do a chiropractic adjustment and the patient has that little bit of pain that's left, you can add auriculotherapy in and get that last bit of pain to completely go away. If you're a physical therapist, you can seal the deal with auriculotherapy. And if you add those ear seeds after the treatment and you give the patient their own tool and technique that they can push on those points, between now and when they come back again, they feel empowered. They will remember you every time they push on those points. They will be reawakened of the power of acupuncture. And that is really how I get rid of chronic pain conditions for my patient. So the other thing you want to remember, that it's easy and that it works. So we are about to move into the Q&A section of this. I'm going to answer several of these questions myself, and then I've got Dr. Larson on hand who there's certain questions I'd like him to chime in on. So let me just kind of start here. Let's see, Jim asked, would the same concept using ear seeds work with a patient with tinnitus? You know, tinnitus, I think, is a really hard thing to treat, and I don't personally get really great results for tinnitus just with auriculotherapy, but I would use auriculotherapy in conjunction with my other treatments. Let's see, Suzanne and Serge, they want to know that the Stimplus Pro does not go higher than 20 hertz. So what about the points that needs a higher hertz? So if you look at the ear zone picture, there are very few regions of the ear that use the higher hertz, and you can buy a device that's much more expensive and it'll fine-tune the frequencies. And I just haven't found the need to use a more expensive device. What I do during that time is I will treat at 20 hertz and I will just treat longer in that zone. And that's how I get away with continuing to use my Stimplus Pro, and I get good results. So if anybody has a different experience than that, it'd be great if you chimed in, but that has been my experience. Laureen wants to know if magnets or seeds are better. And honestly, I have used magnets and I have used seeds. I get fantastic results with seeds. Seeds are cheap, they're easy, they're effective. Kind of a little joke that I have with my patient, they'll ask me, how long do I keep those in? And I'll tell them, well, definitely, they are radish seeds. So if you start growing radishes out of your ears, then we'll want you to pull them out sooner. But honestly, the radish seeds work really, really well. And personally, they're inexpensive and they're effective. And so that is what I use. Let's see. Posed. Several people asked that. And do you have success with Alzheimer's? You know, I don't believe that in my realm of treatment that I can cure Alzheimer's, but I can help somebody with the symptoms of Alzheimer's. And that's something to really recognize in the software program. So if there isn't an Alzheimer's protocol, and I can't remember if there is, but if there is, the points that would be in that protocol would be memory, brain, from a TCM perspective, it might be spleen damp, misting the mind. So I would treat the spleen. And so those are the types of things that you want to think about when you're coming up with a protocol. Think of the symptoms that the patient has, and you want to have that patient have better symptoms. And you can use that theory with Alzheimer's or any other direction. I'm going to leave the Noget questions for Dr. Larson. And so I'll skip that question from you, Serge, right now. Let's see. Philip from New York City. Welcome, Philip. He says, I hear a lot about the vitality point and the interferon point. Are they the same, or what is the difference? So honestly, when I was doing all the research and coming up with the points, I didn't ever see the interferon point in books. And I'll have to go back and see if it ever showed up. But somewhere along the line, I read about it and I added it in as a custom point into my Auriculo 3D protocol. So when you asked that question, I searched it during the video time, and I do have the interferon point located in there, and we did a comparison, and they are the same location. So I would say there is not a difference. They are the same location. Isn't that cool that I could add notes in like that? So once you have a question like that, you could go into your Auriculo 3D and you can say, I learned from Kimberly at the auriculotherapy webinar that these points are the same and there's not a difference. And so you won't question that anymore because it'll always be in your notes and my name will be there. Ha. So let's see. Do you have a protocol for weight loss? We do have weight management protocols in our Auriculo 3D. And let's see, your questions are coming in faster than I can scroll here. How do you know how long to electrically treat any specific point? You know, a lot of that is based on experience and the experience of others. I tend to, you'll probably hear me, I'll contradict myself in different videos that I'm talking about. I often say 10 to 15 seconds, and then sometimes I'll say 15 to 20 seconds. So let's just kind of go with 15 seconds as an average. Honestly, I've gotten to the point at this point, I've been doing auriculotherapy so long, I actually feel the point releasing in my hand, just like if you were to put a needle in and you feel a point releasing. Or if I'm pushing on a seed, I can feel it and it's releasing and it's releasing, and I'll just hold it until it's not doing anything anymore and I'll stop. And I have found that that is about 10 to 15 to 20 seconds. So you'll have to see what works for you. You're totally safe in the 10 to 15 second realm. Mary wants to know, Mary had a bad connection. Let's see. Donald says, I have several devices for auriculotherapy that cost much more, but the Stimplus Pro is my favorite, hands down. I'm glad you said that, Donald, because it's mine too. And a lot of people think that I'm just trying to push the product because we sell it, but I love it. It is small, it is simple. I carry it in my purse when I travel. It's effective. I can stop somebody's pain immediately, shoulder pain, elbow pain. I can't tell you how many new patients I've gotten over the years just because I can pull it out and push a button and treat. Maria asks, what if the patient is left-handed? As far as left-handed goes, I gave two comparisons. If you were treating pain, you're going to treat the side of the body where the pain is. That sticks whether they're left-handed or right-handed. If you have left shoulder pain, you want to treat on the left ear. As far as the other, if they had hemorrhoids, here's the theory and how it goes. I will treat both ears, but the basic theory is if the patient is left-handed, you can treat the, now I'm going to forget the theory. I think you treat the opposite side. Dr. Larson will correct me if I'm wrong in this when he chimes in, but you treat the opposite side. So if you're just going to treat one ear, treat the opposite side. What is the maximum number of points to treat per ear? That's a really good question. When we give a protocol, we give a lot of points that could be chosen for auriculo for that particular treatment, but it does not mean you have to treat them all. You will treat, they kind of go in order. The blue ones are the primary points. The white ones are the secondary points. Check the primary points first, find out if they're electrically active and treat them. There's no need to treat a point that's not electrically active. So I definitely would not treat the whole ear. I wouldn't treat every point in the protocol. Treat the ones that need to be treated. I don't typically treat more than 5 to 6 points. And somebody asked what the NADA protocol is. That is something you could do some Google research, but it has to do with addiction. And there's a whole training course on NADA, and it's I think it's 4 or 5 points that are very specific, and it is in our Auriculo 3D software. All right, let's see. Do you have protocols for autism and ADHD children? We do. They are in the Auriculo 3D software. And if you will go to our website and search for a blog from me, I wrote a whole article about autism and ADHD and how I treat using auriculotherapy. Kids respond really well. And for the ADHD, in our protocol, I think it's directly on the back of Shen Men. And if you treat the back of Shen Men with the front of Shen Men, it's really, really powerful. your problem will be getting the ADHD kid to believe you and leave it on there. But if you can, it's fantastic. Maria, on some microcurrent pointers, you have negative and positive. So to balance tonification, you would use positive, and for pain points, using negative. I'm going to let Dr. Larson answer that. If a person has multiple problems, how do I choose what to treat if all the problems have high priority? You know, if I had a patient who had multiple problems, I probably would zone into one second here. The master points. I would treat the master points. I would get the person into balance in that way. And then the next time they came in, there would be less symptoms that you need to focus on. And so you could focus better. Another thing that I do, in fact, I didn't talk about this in the video, but I do something called an ear scan. So sometimes if somebody has a whole lot of problems, or if somebody's coming in for maintenance and we're just doing a tune-up, I will take my master points list and I will scan the ear. I will scan for any points that are electrically active, but I'll specifically look for the master points that need to be treated. And that just gives a general balance all over the body. And that way, the next time the patient comes in, you can fine tune and there'll be less symptoms on their plate. And then you can get more specific. Can you reverse hearing loss with your therapy? No, I can't. I got the Auricular 3D for the iPad. I understand that the points in blue are surface points. What about the white points? Actually, in all of our programs, the blue points are the primary points. The white points are the secondary. Green are points that are underneath the surface. Let me just bring up my Auricular 3D for just 1 second. I'm sure Dr. Larson will have, I'm going to let him chime in on that. Oh, there we go. So surface points, yes, blue are surface points, but I believe that those are the primary points that you're going to treat as well. Green are under the surface. Those are really good to look at when you're looking through our Auricular 3D, and you can zone in to see where those points are. And covered surface points. So I think of, if you had a bed, you'd have points on the top, which would be the surface points. If you had hidden points, they would be underneath the bed on this direction. And if they were covered surface points, they would be down on the floor. And if I'm wrong on that, Dr. Larson will chime in, but that's my little analogy on how I remember what I'm doing. Hasn't been very beneficial in treating tinnitus. What other conditions? Donald wants to know if I have found specific conditions that are very effective with auriculotherapy. I would say hands down, pain-related conditions. My favorite is shoulder pain. That is where I can get people to, their mouth drops. They're like, I can't believe you just did that. You never even touched my shoulder and you made the pain go away. So pain conditions, I think, are the most effective. Internal conditions, you don't get to see that immediate shift at that moment, but they're very, hemorrhoids are really good with the auriculo points. I have patients who I will treat them for hemorrhoids, and then I will add ear seeds in. And by the time they come back, they tell me that whenever they were feeling pain from the hemorrhoids, the pain would stop immediately. Sandy wants to know, do you increase the intensity of stimulation with the plus button on the Stim Plus Pro so the person feels the stimulation? I don't, because when I find the electrically active point, they do feel it, and I don't feel like they want to feel it more. And if I can hear the sound and know it's the electrically active point, then I'm good with that. All right. I think, how wide in diameter are active points? You know, if you can have a take-home message here, Auriculo 3D and having all the points in one place is going to help you find the general zone. points move ever so slightly based on the person, based on the anatomy of the ear, based on the particular day. So when you're looking at your software to find out where a point location, that's going to give you a general area. And then as you're keying in with the Stim Plus, it's going to narrow in and find the electrically active spot. So I find that the tip of the Stim Plus is actually perfect size to get the point. I couldn't give you an exact size, but about the tip of the Stim Plus. And your other little, here's a little helpful tidbit. When you're using the Stim Plus to find that electrically active point, you can leave a little indentation with that and your ear seed falls nicely into that for later. This has been a really fun webinar. I have enjoyed teaching you. This is one of my dreams, is to teach acupuncturists all over the world. I feel really lucky that I get to live in Idaho and have this opportunity to rub shoulders with all of you. I'm going to ask Dr. Larson to chime in and answer a few of these questions that are lingering. And then he's got some other information about some advanced auriculotherapy that he is going to share as well. So you can keep posting questions. Also, if you do not own Auriculo 3D, why don't you shoot me a personal email? I'll leave my email address up at the end, and it's also in your slide, but it's Kimberly@acugraph.com. So it's really easy to remember. Send me a personal email and I will send you, I'll send you a discount to be able to purchase Auriculo 3D. So it has been great. I have enjoyed this opportunity, and right now I will pass over to Dr. Larson, and I'll come back if there's more questions, but thank you for attending.
Well, hi everybody. Dr. Larson here. I hope you can hear me and see me. I have no idea if you can or can't, but I'm going to pretend you can. Somebody type a note and let me know if you can't see or hear me. Anyway, Kimberly asked me to jump in on a couple of questions, and so I'll go ahead and do that right now. First of all, we have somebody asked about positive and negative polarity and using positive to tonify, negative to sedate. Yeah, that's how the theory works, although I prefer to only tonify with the ear. I prefer to only use an active stimulation rather than trying to turn things down in the ear. I find that I get better results, and that's actually the way that I was originally taught. And so I tend to use a polarity only to stimulate, only to tonify. Next question, somebody asked about Nogier stuff. There's a lot of questions, and I'll tell you this. When it comes to Nogier, there is a lot of really advanced work. There are the various phases of the ear. There's the phases, the theory is that the homunculus in the ear, the upside down fetus, actually moves and changes depending on phases of a disease process. And so that advanced work is really great. It's really powerful. It's more than you're going to get in a webinar, though. That's the kind of thing where you take some training. And I am pleased to announce that there's an outstanding opportunity coming up for Nogier training. Dr. Raphael Nogier, son of Paul Nogier, who pioneered that form of auriculotherapy. He's French. He lives in France. He's going to be here in October in the US teaching, and I will put up a link for you where you can actually download the information about that. But that is coming up, and I really highly recommend. I've been to his seminars before. He's a wealth of knowledge and information, and if you want to learn some advanced work in auriculotherapy, I highly recommend the seminar. So I'll put that note up in a minute. There was somebody asked a question about the various approaches. There's European, there's Chinese, there's the Nogier. I will tell you this, that I was just laughing. Donald says your 5 o'clock shadow came in early. Thanks, Donald. Appreciate you noticing. I guess that means that my camera's working. Anyhow, yeah, there's European approach. That's primarily Nogier. There's Chinese approach, and oftentimes the two are different. Oftentimes they don't overlap. In the Auriculo 3D software, we've actually got both. We put them in and we label them. If there's a point for your knee and it says knee.E, that means European. Knee.C would mean Chinese. And that's how you can tell the difference between the two. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, bear with me just 1 second. I'm going to pop in here and put up that note where you can get the information about the upcoming Nogier seminar. Okay, there we go. That should be showing up now in your in the comments there at the top. Okay, one other question. Somebody asked about how much stim. I wanted to point out, somebody said, hey, do I turn that up until the patient feels it? And Kimberly, I thought, gave a really great answer. She says, no, if it's an active point, you don't need to. Microcurrent stimulation is often subsensory. Now, there is an important psychological component where the patient needs to feel a little something, but you have to be careful. You don't want to shock them and make it uncomfortable. So I think Kimberly was wise. She said, yeah, normally they'll feel it if it's an active point. If they're not feeling anything, but it's an active point anyhow, it is permissible to go ahead and turn it up. I always say, tell me when you start to feel this, and I start clicking the plus, plus, plus. Got my Stim Plus Pro right here. And so I start clicking the little plus right here. Click, 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 and for each click it goes up one level. There's 18 levels of stimulation, and that's fine if you want to click until people start to feel it. So there we go. Those are the questions I had. I'm just going to look through really quick, see if anybody else asked anything I need to respond to. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and give it back over to Kimberly here. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And Kimberly, I think you had a slide you were going to put up about that seminar coming up, and back to you.
All right. Okay, perfect. I'm here. Could you please post the link for the ADHD autism blog? I was trying to do that and wasn't able to. One of the questions that I received from one of our practitioners, Boris in Australia, had to do with the Nogier phase 2 and 3. And his question was this. He says, when you deal with very chronic psychosomatic or not responding problems, if you do not get good clinical results, because their location is different to normal locations described in protocols as they are related to chronic and not responding cases. So what he wanted to know is, do I use the Nogier protocols? I do. In Auriculo 3D, you have the phases, the 4 phases for Nogier, and they are there. Most of the time I get good results with just basic TCM European protocols that we have listed. But if I have a patient that is not doing well, then the Nogier frequency, the Nogier protocol charts are what I pull up. Again, that is more advanced, and that's a fantastic seminar if anyone is interested in attending that in Baltimore. And then Dr. Shams from Belgium asked about the ADHD autism, and I think Dr. Larson posted that on the blog. I have one more Q&A that I want to ask, and none of you have asked about it, but I get emails about this all the time. So I'm going to add it to this webinar so that it's here and you've got the information. So let me click over. I actually created a slide for it because it is, people ask all the time. So you've seen some of my videos where I'm using a needle inserter to do auriculotherapy. I have listed where I purchased this and the website on where I buy it. It's just a little spring-loaded hand needle holder. And so it's used for Korean hand therapy, but I love using it on the ear. You just insert the needle in and you put it on the point, on the spot that you've already found the electrically active point, and it's a quick insert. People who are afraid of needles and don't like needles feel like this is it's painless and easy. So I've added that into your slides so that you can gather that information from there. And so you won't have to ask me when you're wondering about that inserter and where I get it. So all the information is there for you. And someone just asked about my email address. So it's Kimberly at Acugraph, or it's Kimberly at Meridia Tech. And I've added that into the last slide. You've got my email address. You've got my Twitter account at AcuKimberly. And then you've got my phone number here at Meridia Technology. Feel free to call me. And then I hope you're all following us on Facebook. Our Facebook is Acugraph. If you just type in Acugraph on Facebook and follow us. We give a lot of helpful tidbits. You're the first to hear when there's a discount. You're the first to hear about new products coming out. So we hope that you'll follow us there and ask questions and help us keep the love of acupuncture and auriculotherapy going strong. So what about using semi-permanent? So Serge, I talked about the semi-permanent needles previous. I don't like them. I think they are painful. I think they cause a lot of infection. I've been to, here's a true story. The last acupuncture convention I was at, one of the booths that was selling those had said, oh yeah, you need to do this. And he put about 5 or 6 of those needles into, let's see. He put about 5 or 6 needles into the practitioner's ear. And by the end of the weekend, this guy comes up to me and he's like, Kimberly, can you get these out? My ear is burning. I can't sleep. It's hot and it's painful. And I'm having more pain in my ear than the headache that she was trying to take away. And I literally had to like grab tweezers and just pull those out of the ear. They're like a magic bullet that goes into the ear. So I just don't like them. I don't think they're effective. If you're going to cause pain, if you're going to cause the patient more pain versus the pain that they were in previous, you can be so much more effective with ear seeds, in my opinion. So I think we are going to end for now. Feel free to email me if you have questions. And thank you again. And I really, as I said, I really enjoyed. Have a great day. Oh, Yolanda, laser, laser, laser in the ear. Okay, I'll quickly answer Yolanda's question. Laser in the ear, laser works. Your problem is that you're not able to find the point that's electrically active with the laser. So you would use the Stimplus to find the electrically active point, and then, in my opinion, why would I put down a device that treats, set it down, and then pick up the laser so I can treat? If I didn't have a Stimplus Pro and I just had a laser, I would use a probe. I would find the tender point, and then I would use the laser to treat. And that is how I would use laser. So if someone didn't have a Stimplus Pro, they could use a probe, find the tender point, and then use the laser. All right. And Nancy, yes, I will see you in Florida next week. Goodbye.